Let's talk about the hour reset on a modern chiming clock. So this is really common on harmony movements like this. A lot of clocks that have Westminster songs, things like that. You see this all the time. So the hour reset is something to make sure that the chimes work correctly. So let me show you that. So these clocks are designed so that you can set the time by just moving the hands. And the manufacturer says to go backwards. That is the recommendation. But you can go forward as well. And the problem with that is you can hear it's chiming as I'm setting that time, but now these hands are pointing to something totally different. And so the hour reset is designed to make sure that it is going to chime the correct thing at the correct time. And the way that it does that is once it finishes chiming the 45-minute chime, it will not let it chime anymore until it gets to the hour. And so let me show you that. It clicked, but it didn't chime. Clicked again, didn't chime. And now we're coming around to the hour. And now it's going to chime. So the reason it does that is so that when things get out of whack, it's able to get it back in sync by just holding everything until it gets to the hour, and it'll do the hour chime. And of course, from then on, it's going to do everything in order the way that it should. So how does it work? Well, let me show you here. There are a couple components involved in this process. So right here, I'm going to start with this lobe. This is the minute hand right here. And as that turns, you can see there's this cam with 4 different lobes on it. And one of those lobes is bigger than the others. So that one is for the hour. So whenever that comes around, it's going to lift this V-shaped lever up a little bit higher. So let me just show you that. We'll go around a few times. See there, it lifted really high. There, it didn't lift as far. Same. And this one again is the hour. So every time the hour comes around, it's going to lift this lever higher. Now, where that comes into play is with the hour reset catch. So if you look here, there are 2 different things catching on the stop cam. Now, if you watched our video on how to align the gear train in one of these clocks, you'll know what each of these does. But in a nutshell, this is the one that stops everything on the chime side, and whenever this gets released, it's able to chime. But you'll notice there's this catch right here. See that pallet there? And then there's this other hook in the front of that. So the one in the back, this one right here, this is the one that normally operates the chimes. So whenever this gets lifted up by this lever, then it's going to chime. So in this clock, that V-shaped lever is tucked back here. It's a little hard to see. And then it's got this pin right here that lifts up this long lever. So whenever that pin lifts up the long lever, it releases the stop cam and allows the chimes to start running. However, on the hour, it's able to lift that higher. So let's see if we can show you that here. So if you watch there, 30-minute, 45-minute, and now watch this. This is the hour. It's going to lift that lever even higher than before. Now I'm stopping the gear train from turning with my finger because I don't want it to get out of sync. But you can see that it lifts it higher on the hour. Now, if you didn't have this hook right here, everything would work just fine. You don't need that hook. However, that hook is what is the hour reset. So if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have an hour reset. So what it does is it has a finger right here that falls down into another cam. So this right here is the quarter-hour cam, but on the back of that is actually an additional cam right here, specifically for the hour reset. That's all this back part does. So this little V notch right there, that is what's going to allow this hook in the front to drop down and catch. Now, normally, whenever this quarter-hour cam is at a different position, it is not going to let that hook drop. So let's get it to the end of the hour. All right, so now we're at the end of the hour, and you can see that this hook right here is up too high to catch. And it's going to continue like that all the way around. So the 15-minute chime is gone. 30-minute chime's gone off. Let's do the 45. Now when we get to the end of the 45, you'll see that that hook is able to go all the way down and catch. And now, after the 45-minute chime, this hook is holding that stop cam from going. So you can lift up this lever in the back that normally operates it, and it won't release. Oops, I lifted too far. It won't release because that hook is still holding it. So that's keeping it from chiming, just like we saw on the clock a minute ago. Now, how does that catch get released? Well, on the hour, what's supposed to happen is that long lobe that lifts everything up higher is supposed to lift that hook up high enough to release the stop cam. And the way it does that is there's this pin right here that just rests underneath that hook. Over here, you can see it a little better. This V-shaped lever goes to this pin, and that pin is able to lift up that hook. That's all that pin does. Yes. You know, actually, in this case, it's a little bit different. There's a few different styles. On this one over here, this V-shaped lever lifts up the long lever here, and then that long lever has the pin on it. Slightly different setup over here. But point remains the same, that whenever this long lever is lifted up extra high, it's going to lift up that hook so it releases. Now, what happens a lot of the time, the reason we're making this video, is that it's very, very common for this V-shaped lever to get bent so that it can't lift this hook up high enough. So what we're going to have to do to fix it is we're going to just gently unbend that V-shaped lever just a little bit. Not very much. This only needs to come up 32nd of an inch, something very, very small. So let's see if we can open that up just a hair. And actually, first, let me show you what it's doing wrong. So this clock would, the chimes would get out of sync. The reason for that is when we get to the hour, it just barely lifts that hook up and not quite enough to actually release it. You can see it's still barely hanging on. And then when you come around to the 15-minute mark, it might bump it just enough to release it, but it might not. So every once in a while, it just wouldn't chime. Let's try here again. And then there it's chiming again. So sometimes it would chime perfectly. Sometimes it would chime until it gets to the hour, then it wouldn't work at the hour, and then it would chime at the 15-minute mark, which makes it seem like you got the hands in the wrong spot. Sometimes it wouldn't chime at all for a while, and that's why, because that hook is just not getting lifted up high enough. So we're going to see if we can spread this V out just a little bit and get it to lift that high enough. You want to be careful not to bend it to the side because you don't want that to snag or drag on the plate or anything else. All right, and we're just going to lift this up and see how high it lifts that hook. Still not lifting very high. All right, so now I'm going to show you this up close real quick. As this hand comes around, it's going to lift that hook up to where it clears the cam. See, it just cleared the cam. And then it should keep lifting it just a little bit further to make sure we've got enough clearance. And now, yeah, we've got a few thousandths clearance. We can probably go with just a little bit more just to be safe. But now it is releasing the way that it's supposed to, and that's going to work correctly. Now, how does this happen in the first place? Well, if you're turning the hands forward and some things get in a bind in here, which can happen, then it can jam that V-shaped lever and squeeze it back together. And that's probably why this one got out of kilter in the first place, because it got smushed. And that's why the manufacturer recommends to go backwards instead of forward, because you do run a risk of bending things if you're not gentle. Now, if you're gentle, you can spin that hand around forward all day long, And if you feel it get to a bind or get stuck a little bit, just stop, back up a little bit, and wait for it to finish chiming, and keep going. But that is the danger going forward on one of these modern German movements, is that can get bent. So manufacturer does say to go backwards, and that avoids those issues. But if that does happen, now you know how to fix it, and that is how the hour reset works on a modern chiming clock. I hope that helps.